start today's discussion. So in last class we were discussing for loop. Have you tried with the code of factorial and then making some own functions of your own using factorial? Has it worked?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So if you have any, if you don't have any questions from the previous class, we will move on and start the logical functions, that is if else. And actually if you learn up to this conditional implements like if else logical structures and also the loops, most of our performance, our work that is needed for whatever we want to do in this course will be done. So just the array and matrix handling will be left. So from this point onwards, I can say from after today's class, a particular section of the lectures are going to be over, and next we will just try to implement whatever we have learned so far for different problems which are related to physics or related to solving mathematical problems of physics, like numerical integration, differentiation, matrix manipulation, and so on. So can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today we will talk about we'll talk about the logical structures. So just remember about when we learned loops in the last class, for loop, the importance of these indentations, right? Because we don't have any brackets or any other ways to define that how far my loop should run, and only indentations, implemented indentations in my code are take care of that. Okay, and the colon symbol as well, which is associated with all my loops that I have written previously. So the same thing we have to remember for the logical implementations as well. So let us just learn the simplest decision making statement, logical statement that we use is if statement, right? So if is quite similar to whatever we have learned in other languages, whatever language you are familiar with. So here you can use if without any else, and also use if with else, right? So this is the simplest example where there is no else associated with if. So you just how do you make the statement? So you write if, then a space, and then the condition that you need to check. Okay, so this is the condition. If it holds true, then after colon with this indentation that I have, you notice this indentation, this tab that I have put here. So whatever is inside this tab, whatever will be written with this tab will be implemented if this condition that you have written here is true. So you can, if you have only one liner kind of a function, if you have just one command to execute, you can also write them in a single line like this. But if you have multiple commands to implement, if your condition is true, then you have to use tabs and you have to write separate lines like this below this. And once your those executions are over, you again come out of the loop and start writing your statements here. Okay. So is it clear that how you have to put the indentation? So you write if space condition colon indentation, then your statement. Next line indentation, then your statement. Okay. So you go on like you implementing these tabs and the statement, and finally you don't write the tab anymore once the conditional executions are over. So whatever are your conditional executions, that should have this tab in front of them. That's it. That's the way you implement it. So similarly, if you want to associate if with an else, then you write this way, that you write if, then the condition, and then after colon you write what you have to do if this condition is true. Okay, so you put the space and you write if x equal to 10, then print x is 10. Okay, and if you want to print something, if it is not true, if this condition is not true, then we use else. You already know about the if else structure, so I'm not going into detail for that. So where do I have to write the else? Else in the same tabular scale as you have if. Okay, so if and else will be aligned in one line, and your statements inside this if and else will be aligned in one line. So the tab will be such that you have them aligned like this. Okay, so if, then you write your statement what you want to implement if the condition is true, else you write the statement what you want to implement if the condition is not true. Okay, so here one important thing to notice would be this equal to sign. Okay, so I guess you have you have already observed that here I have an equal to sign instead of an equal to, just equal to sign. So if you if we are writing it as a condition inside if, we have to use this double equal to make sure that this is a condition, because if we write a single equal to sign, that will mean assignment. So if you write x equal to 10, that means you are assigning the value of 10 to the variable of x, right? If you write if x equal to 10, that means you are checking the condition that if x is equal to 10, then only I will have to execute that. So just remember this. In case of conditions, you have to write this double equal to sign if you are putting it as a condition. Other signs are all similar to whatever you write normally, like greater than equal to would be something like this, less than equal to will be something like this, greater than, less than alone also you can use depending on your conditions. So that means that if I have a logical statement to implement, I have to interpret my structure, my algorithm in such a way that it comes down to a number, and you can estimate a threshold for that number. Is this number equal to 1? Is this number less than 1? Is this number greater than 1? And this way we will decide that if we want to execute something or not. So I guess the structure of the loop is clear, right? How loop, the conditional statement is clear. Okay, so suppose I have multiple conditions with more than one conditions. So there you can write it with else if statements coupled together. So suppose it is the same problem that we have done once, right? B square minus 4ac. You calculate b square minus 4ac, and you try to conclude your result of an equation like ax square plus bx plus c. Are the solutions real or imaginary or zero or whatever, right? So so from there, what you can do is you figure out what your b square minus 4ac is. So just note here we have this equal to sign here, right? This is just assignment. So here I am just calculating this quantity x as b square minus 4ac, and then I write if x is less than 0, print x is negative. Else if, so we just couple it together as elif. Okay, elif. So else if x is greater than 0, then you write x is positive. Again, another condition, else you put the colon, again space, print x equal to 0. So if x is not positive and not negative, then you can decide that it is 0. So there could be 3 conditions, right? X could either be positive, negative, or 0. So this is how we implement more than 2 conditions. If I have more than 2 possibilities, then this is how we implement it. So please note the indentations here also. Okay, indentations and colons. So please note that how I have written these indentations, put these indentations to make sure that what statement will be implemented within what particular condition. Okay. Any questions up to this point? Any confusions? Okay, so let us move on, and this is a nested if. Okay, so you can implement more than one if else conditions one by one. So inside one else you put another if condition, that also you can do, and there you have to be careful again about the indentations. If you have multiple if conditions, nested if we call them. Okay, so you wrote one couple of else and if. Then inside that you again want to write another couple of else and if, say. So then this second nested inside indentation like this. Okay, so here if n is equal to n is less than 0, print negative, say. Okay, then if else it is print positive. Now if n is greater than 10, suppose I want to also print that it is more than 10, something like that. Okay, so then please note that inside this else, this print statement and this if statement are aligned in the same tab. Okay, are aligned with the same amount of indentation. That means this entire statement is being executed within this else statement. Whatever I write below will be executed inside this else statement. So inside that you can again start another if, and then you put another indentation and write your condition there. So this is how we write nested conditions, nested if. Okay. So that's it. That's how you use conditions in your code, and you try to implement some conditional rules inside your code. So let us start with the simplest example. Okay, simplest example of determining a number is odd or even. So tell me what should be the algorithm for it? Can anyone tell me that how should I proceed if I want to do that?
At first we have to use a for loop, and then if divided by 2 is equal to 0 or not is equal to 0, then we can just.
So divide. That means we have to figure out that what is the remainder, right? So I have to divide it by 2, and then I have to figure out if there is any remainder or not, right? So what is the statement for that? What is the statement? What is the command for that? So in Python, we have learned it before, right? So in the very first few classes we have learned. So the code will be something like this. The logic is absolutely right, that I have to figure out what is the remainder. If I divide that number with 2, if that is equal to 0, so this is the command, right? So n by 2 means it will give you the, n by 2 will not work here, right? N by 2 means you are just dividing in whatever the number is by 2. So you are taking 5 or dividing it by 2. You are taking 10 or dividing it by 2. So it will not give you the remainder. The remainder is this percentage sign. So you figure out what is this number divided by 2 and what is the remainder of that. And if that is equal to 0, you print it is equal to even, else you print it is equal to odd. So here you please note that I have not defined another extra variable just to calculate the condition that I'm using here. You can actually put some mathematics, some small mathematical condition here embedded inside the loop. You don't have to do that num is equal to input. You take an input of number from outside, then you again divide it and store it into another variable, and then you put that variable here as your condition. You don't need to do that. You can directly use num percentage 2 equal to 0. So this much mathematics could be done within if, no problem. Okay, so you don't have to calculate it separately as another variable. So is this part clear? Any doubts here? The first line, I guess you understand. Input, enter a number. This, what is the meaning of this slash n? Slash n is for new line, right? So enter the number, slash n will go to the new line, and the cursor will wait for the user to enter a number. Once the number is entered, that number will be stored inside this variable num, and then you just simply figure out what is the remainder and print your result. Okay, clear? Any doubt?
Ma'am, is it necessary that if I start with the if statement, I have to end with the else statement, or I can just apply multiple statement, like if something I have to
no, if you can use if alone. You can use one if statement alone, that is fine. But if you want to do something like that, I mean, either way, you either do this or do that, then only you have to use else. It is not mandatory to use else. Okay, if is sufficient, you can simply use if and don't use any else statement there. You can do that, no problem. Okay. So try to write this code on your machine or in Colab, and don't forget the brackets. Okay, in print statement for Python 3, if you are writing in Colab, don't forget the brackets and try to write this. Okay, so I guess it will work, no problem. So let us move on to a little bit more complexity. Let us increase. So a perfect square number. Okay. So what is a perfect square number? You know that. So suppose 25. It's a perfect square number because it is 5 is square. Okay. 24 is not, because you cannot put an integer whose square is 24. Okay. So what should be the logic? How can I figure out that what is if a number is perfect square or not? So I will give you a number, say 10, okay, and your code will tell me that is that number a perfect square or not. Do you understand the question? You will your code will calculate is the number perfect square or not. Okay, so how can I do that?
We have a way to find that the round. I think that means that if 5.000, then we can make it 5. So we can subtract the result minus of that round figure, and then if there is nothing, then it is perfect square number.
So how will I so suppose I take 10 and then I do square root of that. Okay, it will give me something. It will give me something, right? So I could ask Python to calculate square root of 10. So it will give me some number, which will be a fraction, a float, obviously, right? So what I will do, I will convert that float or that fraction to an integer. If I convert that fraction to an integer, then only the integer part will remain. We have learned how to do that, right? Int, and you put the inside bracket, you put that number, it becomes an integer. If that is already an integer, then nothing will be lost. What you are saying, that is absolutely right, right? So if it is already an integer, say it's 25 and you square rooted it and you get 5. So now you ask Python to make an integer out of it. It will only give you 5 back only, right? But if you have a number which is not perfect square, its integer part only, if you cut the whatever is after the decimal place, is not going to give you the exact number which you had after square rooting. So then you again square that number, that integer, and check if there is any difference or not. So the logic is clear to everybody? Is the logic clear to everybody? So you take the input of a number, okay, take square root of that number, and then keep only the integer part. Keep only the integer part, and you know how to do that, right? How to extract just the integer part of a number, that we have already learned, right? That command we have already learned, that you can convert real numbers to integers, integers to floats and all. We can do that, right? So you only keep the integer part, and then you square that integer part. You square the integer part that you got from here. So say you got after square root, you got 4.29 something, okay? And then you just keep the integer part out, so you only get 4. So 4.29 square and 4 square will not be equal, and you can check if the squared number matches with the given number that you already had. Okay, so that is the logic. Is the logic clear? Any doubts in understanding the logic? So open your Colab and try to write this code.
Ma'am, why do we have to convert it into an integer? We can also compare it if it wasn't an integer. It will still give the result.
Now, what are you suggesting? If I don't cut it out, then what will I do?
Ma'am, if we don't just consider the integer part. If for an example, if we take the square root of 15, we will get a float number, and we can also put the condition that if the result is of type float, then
you can do that. Then you
it
have
is
to
not.
extract. Yes, that's true. That's true. But then every number, if you we also learned that, right? If you just take any number and apply a square root function, something you do that. So whatever you will get, it will be float only. So 5.000 is also a float, right? 5.000 0, if I get, that is also a float, that is also a fraction. Though the whatever I have after decimal places are 0, right? So from, if you are, you cannot be sure that when once you apply the square root function, the result that you get, okay, its type is always going to be a float only, because it will give you 5.000 in case of 25. In case of 10, it will give you something else. Okay, so if I just cut out the integer part, then I am very sure that I am losing something. I am definitely dropping something if it is not a perfect square. And if it is perfect square, then I am not dropping anything. So that is the point where I want to make my condition work. Okay, I want to implement my condition on that particular section where I know that in case of not perfect square numbers, I will surely lose the part after decimal places if I convert it to integer. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So try to write it. Please try to write it. Take 2 minutes and try to write the code on your own. Just try to write the code on your own. So you just don't have to take any input. You just write some number and you give some number on your own. You don't have to take the input. So just write n is equal to say 10. Okay, and then take the square root of that number, and then you can do that in one step, one go only. Okay, and then take a square of that again. So something like this. So remember that for square root what do I need to use the square root? The math module, right? So the square root function was inside the math module. So the first line of my code will be importing the math module. So that is what we do at the beginning of code. We start importing whatever the modules we are going to use in the code. So square root is a function that we are going to use. That is why we have to import math first line. Okay. Next, you take the input from the user, or you directly write number is equal to some number. That is fine. Okay. This is for taking the input from the user. You can also write the number that you want. Okay. Then I take a square root. So this is a variable name. You can name it whatever you want, nmn, lmn, whatever you want. Okay. In one go, I have taken the square root and also converted it to the integer. So just let us see, we have already decided that whenever I have multiple functions, I will start with the innermost bracket, right? So this innermost bracket has the variable num. So whatever I have here, the innermost bracket has that. Then I operate math.square root on that particular number. Okay. And then whatever is the output, I put that inside a bracket and convert it to integer. Okay, so step by step, I move from the innermost bracket to the outermost bracket to see that how the operations are going to be executed. Okay, so I have the number inside, then I convert it to, I perform the square root, dragging the square root function from my math module, and then once I compute that, I take the integer of that. Okay, so I convert it to an integer. So I just take the integer part out. So now this n square root that I have is again an integer. Okay, then I just take square of that. So I again squared that. So n square root times n square root. I have squared that. Okay, I have multiplied that number 2 times, so I get the square of it. Now I have implemented a mathematical condition that if n square root, that is this number, is equal to num, what we had to begin with, then it's a perfect square, else it is not a perfect square. Is it clear? Is it working? Write the code. Choose your own variable names. So don't confuse yourself with the variable names. Okay? It's not working.
Yeah. It's working, and the result for n is equal to 10 is showing not perfect square.
N equal to 10 is a not perfect square, right? So it is printing not perfect square.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Then it's okay. So put a perfect square number and check if it is giving you that it's a perfect square. say 25 or 16, something like that, 100.
N is equal to 36, showing it's perfect square.
Perfect square, right? What about the others? What about the others? Is it working? So this is a good practice.
Yes,
Whenever
ma'am.
you write a code, whenever you write a code with conditions, you check if both conditions are working or not. Okay. Sometimes it might happen that one side of the story is going all right, but the other side is not working properly. So we have checked with a perfect square number as well as with a not perfect square number that my code is working. Okay. So once you write a code and you want to debug the code, debug means removing errors from your code. You check it in all possible ways. You push your code hard and check it from all possible ways. Okay. So this is the test for perfect square. Clear to everyone, I guess, and how to use if condition, how to use this double equal to sign. Okay, what is the difference with the single equal to sign? Not confusing this. We are not going to confuse this anymore. Okay, and the tabs we have to remember. Very good. So let us now move on. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me one thing. Can I use that? Can I use that int on to you have write NSQRT? So I'm thinking that can I use int square then bracket NSQRT and this side just math dot square root of num. Can I use that, or I have to use int this side?
No. So NSQRT is just the name of the variable. You can write it whatever you want, your own name, my name, whatever that is just the name of the variable. Okay. So don't get confused with the name of the variables. It is just something that I have written. You can write something else. The main important part is whatever is after the equal to sign. After the equal to sign, whatever I have written, you have to do that. You can do that in 2 steps as well. You can first compute the square root and then take the integer of that. You can do that in 2 lines. I have done that in 1 line only. Okay. So you can compute that math dot square root of num and you can store it in some other variable, say sq. You name that variable sq, whatever you want. Okay. And then you take integer of sq and store that as in sqrt. That is the same thing. Doing that and doing this is the same thing. But whatever I have written on this side is just the name of the variables. You can choose whatever you want to replace these words. Okay, but you have to replace them everywhere. So you can write instead of num, you can write number, you can write n. Your code will work if you replace that perfectly in all possible places where I have written it. Okay, so whatever is in front of the equal to sign is the name of the variables. Whatever is after the equal to sign are the operations or the values assigned. Is it okay? Is the confusion clear?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So let us move on. And for today's, another code. Let us look into it. And this is something where I want to make it a bit more complicated. Okay. So prime numbers. What are prime numbers? Prime numbers are divisible by just 1 and itself. Right? So prime numbers are divisible by only 1 and itself. Okay. So I want to give you a number just like the perfect square. Okay. I want to give you a number and you are going to check if it is a prime number or not. What should be my strategy? I'll give you a number. Okay. And you will check if it is a prime number or not. What should be my strategy? What should be my algorithm? So suppose I have 13. Okay, is 13 a prime number or not? If I want to check, what do I have to check actually? I have to divide 13 by 1, but I know it will be it is divisible by 1. Everyone is divisible by 1. So let us leave out 1. Then I have to divide it by 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? And I have to check if the remainder is 0 or not. So if it is divisible by anything or not. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So that simply means that if I want to check if 13 is a prime number or not, then I have to divide 13 by every possible number lying between 1 to 13, right? Is it true? Is it fine? Or I can do better. I can do even better, right? So suppose let us take 13. So 1 is obviously I am going to get 13 is going to be divisible by 1. Then 2, I can check 2. Okay. So let us say if I don't have 13 and I have 12, then 12 is divisible by 2, right? But as soon as I understand that 12 is divisible by 2, that simply means 12 is divisible by some other number as well, which should be greater than 2, isn't it? So if 12 is divisible by 2, then that means 12 is also divisible by 6, right? Okay. So that means if I need to check if 12 is a prime number or not, what I need to do is I just need to go halfway. I don't have to go the entire way until 12 to understand if it is divisible by any number or not. Because if it is divisible by something which is lower than its square root, then it is surely going to be divisible by another number which is higher than its square root. Do I understand? Do you understand this? Am I clear? Let me just repeat this once again. Okay. So suppose I am checking. I have taken a number. Whatever that number is, and I'm trying to check if it is a prime number or not. Okay, so if it is a prime number in itself, then just the halfway at its square root of that number is just multiplication. That number should be multiplied twice. The square root of the number should be multiplied twice to get the number that I have, right? So if I have n, then square root of n is the number which will be multiplied twice to get my n back, right? So any number which is less than the square root of n, if any one of them are not factors of that particular number, then any higher number is also not going to be a factor. If it is not divisible by anyone less than root n, then it is not going to be divisible by anyone greater than root n and 2n. So do I understand? Do you understand this? Are we clear about this, what I am trying to say? Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking. Hello? Someone was saying something. Hello? No, you are not audible. So should I repeat this once again, or we understand this? So this is what I am trying to do here is reducing the number of times your code is going to run. Okay, because suppose I give you a very, very large number, and for 12 or 13 or 11, it will not seem very much that you want to learn a loop from 1 to 11 and check for every number if one is divisible, 1 or 2 or 3 are factors of that particular number. Okay, but if I give you a really large number, and then you have to run the loop several times, right, to reach that particular point. If I can reduce that number, then that means I am reducing the time till the time taken by the code to take its decision, right? So if I can reduce the number of runs, times the for loop is going to run by a factor of 2, then that is great. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to limit that how far is enough to take the decision, and up to root n is basically enough to take the decision, because if it is divisible, if it is not divisible by any number which is less than root n, then it is not going to be divisible by any number higher as well. Because if I have 2 here, then on the other side I must have 6. Okay, if I have 3 here, then on the other side I must have 4, and root n lies somewhere in between. Root of 12 lies somewhere in between. Okay, 3 and 4. So that is how we take the decision, and we run the loop only till root n. That is enough. We can run the loop only till root n, and that is enough. So let us write our code then. So the algorithm would be something like this, where I have a combination of for and if. Okay, I'll have a combination of for and if. If is going to help me to decide if it is a prime number or not, and for is going to help me to do the repetitive task of division by different numbers again and again. Okay, so you can start the loop from 2 to n minus 1. That is the brute force way of doing it. You go all the way. Okay, you go all the way from 2 to n minus 1, and you can also run the loop till root n that we have just discussed, that you can do. Okay, and inside the loop, check if the number n is divisible by any number between 2 to n minus 1. Okay, and just remember one thing, that if I have to take the decision if the number is prime or not, then I can just take the decision in one step. If it is divisible by any one of them, it is not a prime. So I don't have to go all the way. As soon as I get any number where I don't have any remainder, it is divisible by that number, I can come out of the loop. I don't have to run the loop all the way. Okay, so let us see the code. So the code is something like this. Let me just guide you through the code, okay, step by step. So just ignore the import function on the top for now, and I will come back and tell you that why I have taken this. So first I am taking the input of the number n, okay. Then I am starting a for loop, okay. So in what the for loop is saying is, for I in range 2 to n, so I am going from 2 to all the way to n, if n is divisible by I. So I is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and all. So n is divisible by I means I have taken the remainder, and if it is 0, then it is not a prime number, right? So if it is, if I am taking 12 and it is divisible by 2 and I have the remainder to be 0, then it is not a prime number. So I just see that if it is 0 or not, if it is 0 or not, and then I inside the if I write print this number is not a prime number. Okay, this number is not a prime number, and then I write exit. So what is this? For this only I need this system import this module. So this is just to make sure that I redundantly I don't run the loop several times, because I already found a factor of that particular number and already decided that this is not a prime number. Once I decide that it is not a prime number, there is no point of running the loop all the way. So you write this, and this breaks the entire thing, and it comes out of everything, whatever you have. So it comes out of the if, it comes out of the for. You are outside of all whatever you are running there, and you are outside of that for loop. Okay, so the for loop starts with this this indentation. Okay, so wherever you have this indentation, that means this entire portion where you have this indentation is inside the for loop, and the if starts with here with this indentation, and that means these statements are inside if, and this print statement you can see that is outside everything. Okay, so if it is not a prime number, it will exit from the code straight ahead, and if the entire loop runs and the system does not come out to print anything or exit from the code, that means we have not found any factors, and we print that it is a prime number. Okay, so try this code out and just try to absorb it. Try to spend some time using writing multiple codes, which will use both loops and your conditional statements. If you have any confusion, we can discuss that in tomorrow's class. And tomorrow we will also talk about some more codes that we can write using a combination of for and if. Okay, and one more thing to say is that I will stop at this point today, and one more thing to say is that in next week your continuous evaluation is scheduled for MTech students. I'm saying your continuous evaluation is scheduled. So which day will you like, Thursday or Friday for the test? There will be a test. So which day will you like? Do you have any preference?
No, ma'am.
It's fine. Any day is fine, right? So let us schedule it on Thursday then. Okay. So we will have a test on Thursday during the class only. Okay. it will be a coding assignment. So the MSc students and others, you can also attend if you want. You will not be evaluated for your assessment, but you can just see that how the how good you have learned so far. Okay. So Thursday's class is going to be the internal assessment for 15 marks, which is going to directly be added to your final evaluation. Okay. So see you in the tomorrow's class with some more examples and to clarify any doubts if you have regarding the conditional statements and regarding the loops. Okay. So